Now, this is the story of how a little mouse outsmarted a hungry fox, a very hungry fox indeed. It's a modern classic from 1999, and it's called The Gruffalo by Julia Donaldson. And you know what? Let's go on an adventure. Deep in the heart of a big wood lived a clever little mouse. He lived with his mom and dad in a cozy mouse hole under the roots of an old oak tree. He liked living there. He liked watching the sun come up through the leaves every morning, and he liked seeing the dewdrops on the spider webs each day. But one day he went out to gather some nuts for winter, and he met a fox. Now this was no ordinary fox. This was a big bad fox who was always hungry, so hungry that if our little mouse had stayed around too long, the fox would have gobbled him up. But the mouse was quick-witted and he ran away. He ran and he ran until he came across a snake. Now this was no ordinary snake. This was a big bad snake who was also always hungry, so hungry that if the mouse had stayed around too long, the snake would have swallowed him whole. But the mouse was quicker than a flash and he ran away again. He ran and he ran until he came across a pair of big bad owls, who were always looking for something to eat. So hungry that if the mouse had stayed around too long, the owls would have hooted him down. But the mouse was smarter than a whip and he ran away once more. Finally, after many adventures, the little mouse came upon an even bigger baddie, a Gruffalo. He was a terrible monster who was always ready to chomp anything that came too close, so hungry that if the mouse had stayed around too long, the Gruffalo would have crunched him like a carrot. But the mouse was sharper than a tack and he ran away yet again. And because this wasn't just any ordinary mouse, he knew exactly where to run. All the way to the other side of the wood, and right back to his comfy home under the oak tree. As soon as he got there, he told his mom and dad about his big adventure, how he'd met a fox, a snake, 2 owls, and a terrible Gruffalo. "Oh, my clever boy," said his mother. "You used your wits and you were quick and fast and you saved yourself." But the little mouse shook his head. "It wasn't just me, Mum. I think it was that Gruffalo. See, when I started running away from him, he started chasing me. And as we were running through the trees, I looked back and I saw that the fox was coming out of the bushes. He was chasing after me, but the Gruffalo scared him away." "Oh, my clever boy," said his mother. "You used your wits and you were quick and fast and you saved yourself." But the little mouse shook his head. "It wasn't just me, ma'am. I think it was that Gruffalo. See, when I started running away from him, he started chasing me. And as we were running through the trees, I looked back and I saw that the snake was slithering out of the long grass. He was coming after me, but the Gruffalo scared him off." "Oh, my clever boy," said his mother. "You used your wits and you were quick and fast and you saved yourself." But the little mouse shook his head. "It wasn't just me, Mum. I think it was that Gruffalo. See, when I started running away from him, he started chasing me. And as we were running through the trees, I looked back and I saw that the owls were swooping down from their branches. They were coming for me, but the Gruffalo scared them off." "Oh, my clever boy," said his mother. "You used your wits and you were quick and fast and you saved yourself." But the little mouse shook his head. "It wasn't just me, Mum. I think it was that Gruffalo. See, when I started running away from him, he started chasing me. And as we were running through the trees, I looked back and I saw that the fox was trotting along behind me. He was coming for me, but the Gruffalo scared him off." "Oh, my clever boy," said his mother. "You used your wits and you were quick and fast and you saved yourself." But the little mouse shook his head. "It wasn't just me, ma'am. It was that Gruffalo. I think we should go and tell him." So off they went, the little mouse and his parents, to find the Gruffalo. But after walking a while, the little mouse said, "Oh no, I don't think he'll want to see us. He might be angry because I tricked him." So they hid behind a bush and peeked out to see if the Gruffalo was still there. And do you know what they saw? Not only did the Gruffalo not leave, he brought his dinner back with him, a big juicy beetle, wriggling and squirming and struggling to break free. "Let me at him," cried the little mouse. "I'm so hungry." But his mom and dad held him back. "No, no, no, silly mouse. That's not how you treat someone who's helped you. Remember what he did for you. He scared off the fox, and the snake, and the owls, and even brought you a present. We must thank him first." So then the little mouse went out and said, "Gruffalo, Gruffalo, will you have a snack?" "What sort of snack?" asked the Gruffalo. "A mousy snack, or a snaky snack, or a squirrely snack?" "I'd love a mousy snack," said the Gruffalo. "That's what I like best." And as he opened his mouth wide to say thank you and give the mouse a little nibble, the little mouse took this chance and scurried up his big furry leg. Then he climbed onto his head and tickled his ear. "Stop tickling, you silly mouse," cried the Gruffalo, but the little mouse kept tickling. Then he jumped onto his nose and tickled that instead. "Stop it," cried the Gruffalo. "Stop it now." But the little mouse kept tickling until the Gruffalo started laughing. He laughed and he laughed and he laughed so hard that the beetle flew right out of his mouth and buzzed around his head. And that's when the little mouse made his move. He jumped into the beetle's empty mouth and snuggled down inside. The Gruffalo didn't notice. He was still laughing, and by the time he stopped and turned around to look for his little mouse friend, it was too late. The little mouse had made himself a den inside his mouth. "Well, I never," said the Gruffalo. "This is the biggest surprise of all." And from that day on, the Gruffalo and the little mouse became the best of friends. They shared their food and they played together every day, and sometimes the little mouse even rode on his friend's nose. And that's the end of the story. Now, before we go, remember to show your support if you haven't already. It really helps me make more videos. And if you want to hear another great story, click here. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.